I'm thinking some more about the G word, a word which in theory I have absolutely no use for, but I won't do any harm to do a bit of thinking about it, which is God. As I've already established to my own satisfaction at least, I certainly have no interest in a kind of theistic God which lives outside the universe, nor do I have any particular use for a deist God who kind of lit the blue touch paper and retired from the universe. For my own consideration, I have a God which is kind of pantheistic, or which is a little like Spinoza's God, which is implicit within the universe, is more attractive certainly, but it seems to me that just resolves to a kind of dispositional response to the universe. It doesn't change the fabric of the world itself. So, whilst I have no real issue with that, it doesn't add anything to my understanding. So I'm just using the word in my own mind, the word God in my mind, to signify everythingness. The everythingness which isn't simply the physical universe, but is also all of the ephemerality and the heuristics, laws, thoughts, dreams, mental impressions, the words I'm saying now, a steam, a bucket bowl of rice, those kind of things. So if I'm using that, I'm using the word God as a kind of all-embracing term for everything, even though, as I've already said, there's probably no effective way I can use that in a conversation. It's purely a construct. Then I'm thinking, what would be a good symbol for that? If I was obliged to, for example, include a term within a mathematical equation or some sort of logical proposition, using some sort of formal or symbolic logic notation, what would be, or just as a sort of diagram for my own visualization purpose of what image would I use for that? One of the ways I'm thinking about that is I'm thinking, I don't know much about mathematics, but I'm quite interested in that. And one of the books which I've always found very engaging is George Spence Brown's Laws of Form, which is it's a maths book, philosophical maths book. Interesting. And he uses the image of a bounded area, a circle drawn on a page, to represent certain sort of numerical conditions. So it has a relationship to number theory, it has a relationship to set theory. But this idea, the bounded circle drawn on the surface of a page, distinguishing the inside from the outside, and then there being a series of logical mathematical conclusions one can draw from that, and a series of moves one can make in relation to that, moving inside of the circle, moving outside the circle, and so on, which allow for certain propositions to be advanced. So, drawing sort of loosely on that idea, what kind of a mark on the page would represent this God concept? Well, what I'm thinking here is it is a mark on the page always distinguishes. So in the laws of form and in set theory, number theory, Venn diagrams, like all that kind of stuff, flowchart, the mark on the page, the bounded surface on the page, distinguishes the inside from the outside, distinguishes elements which are inside a category from those which are outside of a category. So what kind of a mark on the page, what kind of a category would have to draw on the page to signify the category of all categories which contains itself, or something like that, which is God, at least in the terms that I'm using it. Well, what I'm imagining in that in my mind, what I'm imagining is This is not really part of number theory or anything like that. This is just a purely visual thing. What I'm imagining is a circle on the page getting larger. Because it would need to get larger to contain more stuff, if you like. So initially the circle contains the category of all things which have physical representation. So the physical universe, for example, is contained within that category, and anything outside of that category is not of the physical universe. I can see I'm into metaphysics already, but I'll just ignore that for now. So if I wanted to try to embrace things which were not part of that physics, some temporal elements perhaps, some subjective elements, the feeling of the cold on my hand, some phenomenological experiences, then I would assume I could include those within this category. Then I would, to visualize that for myself, I'm imagining the category expanding, so the mark on the page, the circle drawn on the page, is getting larger. As I keep entering objects and events and experiences into this category, evacuating from the area outside of that bounding line, the category itself gets larger, but the area outside of the category inevitably gets smaller, which means there must be a point in this diagram construction when the bounded surface, the bounded area inside of the line contains far more entities and objects and experiences than the area outside of the line. Because the dot on the page is a very large circle with a tiny area on the outside. At that point I could, if I wanted to, I don't see any reason why not, reverse the order of categorization. So it would be easy enough just to say, well, the area outside of the line is the category, and the area between the outside of the line and the edge of the page is the contents of this category, and the area inside of the line, inside the pencil-drawn boundary, contains everything that is not in the category. It wouldn't make any logical difference to do that. We'd carry out the same mathematical procedures, logical procedures. So I'm assuming they're equivalent. But I can continue this operation of evacuating things from that which is not the category of God into this thing which is the category of God. In this case, what I'm doing now is taking elements, events, objects outside of the bounded circle at the centre of the page and putting them into the area outside of that boundary. So as I'm doing that, what's happening is that the circle drawn on the page, which my imagination of that, is getting smaller and smaller, and it's diminishing. And of course the area outside of the circle is getting larger as the circle contracts. And taken to its logical conclusion, there must be a certain point at which the last elements, the last elephants from outside of that category are put into that category, which in terms of this visualization means the last few phenomena within that little bounded circle drawn in the front of the page are taken out of that and put into the category of everything, the God category, which is now outside of that circle. And when the last thing is removed, presumably, the category circle diminishes to a point, a contentless point somewhere on the page. Well, it looks like a point. It's actually a bounding line for the category. It's a periphery, it's a circumference line, but it's the circumference is reduced to a single point at the centre of the diagram, and everything outside of that point is everything with God. So, in terms of a symbol, the symbol for everything, the symbol of God, for God here in this imaginary construction, is a single point placed anywhere on a page. The outside stays the same regardless of where you put the point. And everything that is not at the point is God. So in terms of the universe, in terms of... this is just nonsense, I'll say it anyway. In terms of lived experience, that point is wherever we choose it to be. So everything outside of a point at the heart of my being is within that category of God. Everything outside of a point within the heart of that force. It's in the